The original Modern Warfare 2 is something that a lot of people consider to be peak Call of Duty. It was an amazing game with a great campaign and a top tier multiplayer that many people, myself included, have a lot of nostalgia towards. When the initial Modern Warfare reboot had released, all I had wondered at the time was how the eventual reboot of Modern Warfare 2 would turn out. It's no secret that the original Modern Warfare 2 is easily one of my favorite first person shooters, definitely one I'd toss into a personal top 5 as well, thanks to the engaging and epic story that's still one of the most memorable in the series. That being said, I think my bias towards the original game made it a lot more difficult to actually get into Modern Warfare 2 2022. I'll start off by saying that I don't think it's a bad game, however, it just didn't really hit the same vibes that I got from the OG game. But all things considered, it's still a fun time and one that I'd say is decent enough for at least one playthrough. So with all that out of the way, let's take a look at Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 2022. Developed by Infinity Ward and published by Activision, the Modern Warfare 2 2022 reboot would release on October 28, 2022 for the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series XS, and also Windows. The game would release to decent enough scores as well and go on to become the fastest selling Call of Duty, bringing in over $800 million and overtaking the previous sales record of 2011's Modern Warfare 3. Modern Warfare 2 2022 would also be nominated for a number of awards, which also included things like Best Multiplayer and Action Game, and also take home some wins with Outstanding Game and Franchise Action. Apart from the usual standard version, the Modern Warfare 2 reboot would also include a special edition with the Vault Edition. This included the game, FJX Cinder Weapon Vault, the Season 1 Battle Pass and 50 tier skips, and also the Khaled al-Assad Final Judgment bundles, Ghost Legacy Pack, and also early access to the open beta and campaign. Modern Warfare 2 also had a bunch of promotions as well. A lot of it included stuff for bonus XP and skins for the multiplayer. To name a few, there's promotions with Burger King, Little Caesars, Papa John's, and of course, who could forget the Mountain Dew Game Fuel stuff. But anyways, not really much else to get into here, so let's move on to the story, shall we? If you don't want to hear any of this recap stuff, feel free to skip ahead to the provided timestamp. The Modern Warfare 2 reboot begins with a shot of Al Mazrah and brief communication between Graves, Shepard, and Laswell before we see Ghost, who we're playing as in the opening level strike. From the start, we're going through a canyon where we use a spotter to locate General Gabrani to see what the dude is up to. We see that the Russians are here supplying Iran with arms, after which we're told to get visuals on Gabrani. This leads through a missile being launched as Ghost gives the go-ahead.
Copy approved. Send it.
All stations, Shadow 1. Missile is ready for immediate delivery.
Stand by for launch. Coordinates in. Target designated.
2, 1. Shot out. Missile in blue.
So we pilot the missile, using it to destroy the convoy, thus killing the general, and so we have the Modern Warfare 2 title. This is followed by a scene several months later with Laswell telling Shepard that they have a hit on Gabrani's second in command, Quds Force Major Hassan Zyani, who's taken up the mantle for supplying Iran. Laswell says that he wants retaliation for the missile strike and that he's planning something, as we learn that he's in Al Mazrah, with both Shepard and her agreeing that they need to get rid of him. This is followed with Shepard telling Ghost that him and Soap McTavish will be leading here, before we move on to see Laswell saying that airstrikes are hitting enemy positions on the border of Al Mazrah and that Major Hassan might be holed up in a structure that Al Qatala are guarding. She goes on to say that Ghost and Soap will be leading a Marine Special Operations unit to kill or capture Hassan, with them wanting Hassan alive for interrogation, as the scene switches to where we see our team on a helo.
Bravo team offloads here. Alpha team stays on board to land down range. Both teams meet in the middle. Remember, we want Hassan alive, but this is capture or kill.
So in this mission, Kill or Capture, we're playing as Soap, seeing that our allies' helo was downed. We go on, moving to clear buildings with enemies attacking Alpha's crash site. After this, we go on with Ghost to secure it, with enemies swarming in. Eventually, air support comes in and takes out oncoming enemies, and then we continue searching for Hassan Zyani after regrouping with our squad. Along the way, we end up having to take out some snipers so that we could push on to clear the last building, which basically basically gets blown up. While searching the building, we find Zioni's uniform, which confirms that he was at least in the area. But anyways, after this, we go and search a nearby warehouse that we discover has an American missile inside of a shipping container. This scene is followed with Shepard telling Laswell that Iran is in possession of American missiles and that he wants to know how many they have and where they intend on using them. Shepard then commands Ghost to destroy the missiles, with Laswell saying that Amsterdam is a smuggling hub and that Iran has friends there, and so do we. Captain Price, who we find out is conveniently there, tracking an Alcatala cell as we speak. We then switch to Laswell contacting Price and Gaz in Amsterdam, who we see are watching an AQ boat. This goes on to Price finding out that they're loading cargo onto a barge with sentries on the perimeter. So we begin the mission Wet Work, playing as Gaz as we go swimming around clearing some docks and patrol boats. After this, we go on with Price to a barge that we clear out, seeing that AQ is working with the Mexican cartel Las Almas after Price inspects a body. After which, we go to the end of the boat, grabbing a phone off of a dude we drop at the end. When we do so, we discover that AQ and the cartel are having a meeting at Cafe Grot, which ends this section. It begins one with the mission Tradecraft, where we see Price sitting at a table watching some cartel members and an Iranian conducting a transaction that we need to know about. So in the beginning here, we see Laswell give Gaz a non-lethal syringe, and then we follow her to the meeting, finding some cartel members, one of which we put to sleep. After this, Price says that Hassan Ziani is bound for the United States, currently being in Mexico, as we go on to regroup with Laswell near the cafe where Price is located, going on to grab a distraction grenade from him that we use by planting in a dumpster in an alleyway. After this, we drop some cartel members, continuing on where Price snatches up the HVI as we go on escorting the dude to Laswell's car, which also ends the level. This is followed with a cutscene of Laswell getting into contact with Colonel Vargas, who she informs that Hassan Ziani is being smuggled into the United States and that she needs his help finding him. This is when we switch to the United States-Mexico border, where Laswell tells Alejandro that the cartel are using migrants as a diversion to get the VIP into the country. In this scene, they find a boat going on shore here, hearing voices of the cartel. So in the mission Borderline, we're playing as Rodolfo, where we're tagging along with Alejandro, going on to track down some cartel members. We go on, finding them climbing over the border wall, which leads us needing to engage and follow to search for Hassan. Laswell tells us that we have no authority in the area. However, Alejandro tells her to get into contact with the local law enforcement to inform them about the situation as we cross the border wall. Eventually, we hit this point where we're stopped by the police, who let us go after realizing that the two were Laswell's guys. However,
Hard to tell you boys apart from cartel. Where's your suspect?
Track them.
so the police are killed here and we're ambushed by the cartel. Once they're taken care of, we go on to search a nearby stash house, eventually finding our target.
Burn everything. Do you know who I am?
You're a terrorist, pendejo.
I'm a soldier. And I'm here to fight. No. Let him burn, as Gobrani burned.
So we find Hassan here, but he's able to escape as the house is set on fire, with Alejandro coming in to save Rodolfo. This is followed by a cutscene with Laswell informing us that Hassan was taken back into cartel protection in Las Almas. We also learn here that Hassan is moving cargo that might contain missiles into the US. Therefore, we need to find out what's inside of them, with Soap and Ghost being sent in to link up with Mexican Special Forces, with Graves and Shadow Company PMC being sent in to assist. This is followed with a scene with Soap and Ghost introducing themselves to Alejandro and Rodolfo. We're also informed here that Hassan is in a cartel safe house. On the drive there, we pretty much learn the situation of Las Almas and the cartel.
Kids, guns, and balloons. It's a new one.
Narcos use generosity to win over the people,
Even the children.
especially the children.
What's on those sheets?
Narcomantas, cartel cloths, messages from El Sin Nombre, warnings marking territory. Our streets are laced with death. Who's the nombre?
El sin nombre. The nameless. The leader of the Las Almas cartel. Where can we find him? You can't. No one knows who he is. But he is everywhere. And this is a challenge. Los vaqueros like challenges. With your mask, you will fit in well, Hugo. So you cálmala. Checkpoint is the army. Turn right, we'll go around. Why? Some troops are in the pocket of El Sin Nombre. Like I told you, he is everywhere.
But anyways, this leads into the mission Cartel Protection, where we're playing as Soap, who's following Alejandro, going into houses to clear threats. Eventually, we hit this building where Hassan may have been after Ghost takes note of a flag on the wall. This leads us needing to fight the Mexican army backed by the cartel, eventually having to jump out of a window to make our escape. As we continue, this dude Rodriguez tries to call for an extraction, but is unable to. We continue onwards, dropping dudes and jumping down cliffs when we hit this point where we gotta hug a wall to get across when Rodriguez gets shot by a sniper and falls to his death. Once we make it across, we end up needing to go for a swim by doing a little leap of faith.
You led us to a dead end, mate. We jump from here. Don't lose a weapon.
Breathing.
So we survive this, eliminating the army when we eventually reach a bridge full of dudes. Luckily, Shadow Company helps us out by blowing them up as we go on to hop into a truck, ending the level with a cutscene of Graves asking our boys if they're ready to get Hassan. This is followed with the scene of Graves contacting Shepard, saying that they have a hit on Hassan. We then see our group east of the compound where Hassan is located, marking themselves as we begin the level Close Air, where we're playing as a Shadow Company operator manning the guns of an AC-130. The level is pretty much just clearing the area so that Soap and the others can get to Hassan. Not much to say about anything here otherwise. About halfway through, however, they do in fact secure the dude. And then we get the green light to blast the Mexican army with our boys escorting Hassan out of the area. We end here with the scene of our crew pushing Hassan into a vehicle and driving off. This scene is followed with Graves getting all excited about the success of Hassan's capture, with Graves also telling Shepard the good news. But anyways, we follow this up with the mission Hardpoint, where we're still on the AC-130. Shortly after this level begins, we see the cartel ambush our guys, causing them to have to hole up on top of a restaurant. Once again, we're pretty much just blasting dudes until the team extracts Hassan via helicopter, which also ends the level as we see the AC-130 fly away. This is followed by a cutscene with Laswell and Shepard being sent a nice shot of Hassan in the middle of nowhere. They're essentially trying to find out information about where the American missiles are going. However, they don't get anything of value and end up having to release him, since if they kill him, it's an act of war, and keeping him captured is illegal. As we see a tracker being planted into Hassan's pocket with them leading him away. At the same time, however, Laswell is able to get something from Hassan's phone, which they discover went through a cell tower off the coast of Spain. This means we gotta get there to see if there are any missiles. This scene is followed with us seeing Laswell on the coast in a boat, armed with a sniper rifle. We then see Price and Gaz take out some dudes in ghillie suits, with Price saying there are mobile patrols and a ground team ahead. So in Recon by Fire, we're playing as Gaz, doing a little sniping with Price, and going on through the area, sneaking around.
Try to anticipate the paths. If you have to maneuver, do it slow and steady. No quick movements. Keep your head still. It's gonna be close.
¿Me oyes, güey?
Confirmo, te escucho.
¿Algo que informar?
Bien por aquí.
Recibido.
Once we successfully stealth our way there, we end up having to snipe some dudes. Once this is done, we head on to clear some buildings, searching them after. After we hit the second building, we discovered that there's an underground tunnel in a nearby lighthouse, which leads us heading there with Price, where we need to do some more sniping. After this, we continue onwards to the lighthouse, where we discover some Russian crates in a nearby building, and then go on to find the secret entrance to a tunnel that we explore with Price. Once we hit the end of the tunnel, we find a submarine. However, this This discovery is interrupted once Malkatala's soldiers end up boarding Laswell's boat and take her captive, which also ends the level. This is followed with a cutscene where we see that Laswell is still alive with a video. Shepard says here that he can't help Price get Laswell back, which means he's gonna need to get some outside help. This leads to a scene in Urzikstan where we see the familiar face of Farah overlooking the convoy holding Laswell. We see that Price and Farah are gonna be working together against a common enemy as we begin the mission Violence and Timing, still playing as Gaz. In the opening section of this level, we're on board a helicopter taking out enemies as we try to rescue Laswell. Eventually, Gaz gets knocked out of the helicopter after it's hit with a rocket, which leads to him having to swing upside down. Once we take care of some more enemies, Gaz cuts himself free and lands on a truck that he ends up hijacking, which leads to this section where we're essentially just driving around to reach the vehicle Laswell is being transported in. After some time, we end up meeting up with Price again as we jump onto a truck with him. We continue on for a bit when we hit the next part of the mission where we once again need to hijack another truck. This inevitably leads to a section where we end up needing to board an APC to stop it by blowing it up. Once this is done, we jump back onto a truck with Price, going on to reach this point where the convoy is stopped as we rush into a black SUV and save Laswell.
Kate! Get the side! Laswell, clear! Kate, move! No! He's mine! Check it. We're clear. Kate. It's over. It's over.
So this is followed with the scene where Laswell says that the missiles were never in Spain, only the guidance systems which were given to them by the Russians, and that there's only one person other than Hassan who knows where to find them. The scene then switches to Soap, Ghost, Alejandro, and Graves overlooking a cartel compound where we're informed Sin Nombre will be. The group comes up with a plan to trade intel to get in close to Sin Nombre so that they can capture him, with Soap agreeing to be the bait here. So in the beginning of the mission El Sin Nombre, we see Soap purposely get himself captured in order to find information on the remaining missile. Soap is then brought to an elevator where we find Alejandro in disguise, who informs him to tell the truth about everything, as we're brought by a dude named Diego to a room where we're interrogated by a woman named Valeria. After spilling the beans, which allows us to survive the interrogation, we're brought back up to a mansion where Alejandro gives us a knife, and we go on to search for a key card that'll allow us to take an elevator up to the penthouse to El Sin Nombre. We do this by dropping Diego, grabbing his card, and then going up the elevator with Alejandro. Once we reach the top, Alejandro snake cams the room where we discover that El Sin Nombre is actually Valeria. We rush in to capture her, going onto a roof where she's stopped, which leads to Alejandro stating that he recognizes her as the level ends. The following cutscene, we learn that Alejandro and Valeria knew each other and that they served together in the military. However, Valeria would kill someone named La Arana and take over the Las Almas cartel. They pretty much call Valeria a terrorist here, and she retorts that as long as there's a war on terror, there'll be no real war on drugs, and that if they want to find the missiles, they need her. And in exchange for the information on Hassan and the missiles, they'll let her go. They agree to this, and afterwards, we see that we're going to be heading to an oil rig offshore in the Gulf of Mexico that's being used as a smuggling dead drop by the cartel. We also find out that there's a container that's believed to be carrying a missile on the rig as well. At the start of Dark Water, we're playing as Soap as a part of a team that's infiltrating the oil rig. We go on, clearing the bottom and upper decks where we see that a missile is being launched. We continue onwards to stop it, investigating a container to find out that it's empty, as we learn that we'll need to head to a nearby ship to disable it as we rappel down onto a boat and head there. We fight our way onwards with Shadow, clearing the deck and then going on to Breach as we head inside, fighting to missile controls where we go on to disarm the missile. Unfortunately, we discover that it's too late to do so as we end up needing to destroy the missile by launching it at the oil rig, as Alejandro and the members of Shadow Company are informed to get off the rig. But anyways, we successfully take care of the missile by putting in commands dictated by Graves to blow it up along with the oil rig.
Let's enjoy our handiwork, Sergeant. Here we go. All stations, prepare for the boom.
Sign away.
Look at that big head.
Steaming bloody Jesus.
So with the success of the missile's detonation, the scene goes on to where we find out that Shepard had put Graves in charge of the operation, with his men having taken over Alejandro's base and Soap, Ghost, and Alejandro being relieved.
Why the hell are we talking like this is some kind of negotiation? It's not. I've got my orders.
and now you have yours.
And who the fuck do you think you are, cabron? My men are inside!
I'm afraid not. Your men have been detained.
Graves, what the fuck? Hands off of me! Go, Johnny! Get out of there! So, go!
So after the backstabbing by Graves, we see that Soap was able to survive, beginning the mission alone as he gets into contact with Ghost, who tells him to RV at a nearby church. The main objective here is for Soap to survive as he heads through Los Alamos streets, seeing that Shadow Company is executing everyone in their search for Hassan, as well as Ghost and Soap. But anyways, we ultimately make it to Ghost at the church, and then get to a vehicle to escape.
All right, Johnny. You made it. We made it, LT. Go fast. That's one way of doing it.
So with the lone ending, we follow this up with a cutscene of Soap and Ghost at Alejandro's safe house where they find Rodolfo hiding out. Ghost says here that anyone outside of the room is considered hostile with one exception, Alejandro, who had been captured by Graves. We learn here that Alejandro and his team are imprisoned in a remote area outside of Los Alamos, which means we gotta break them out. We follow this up with the mission Prison Break, where we're playing as, yep, you guessed it, Soap again. The introduction of this level has us following Rodolfo as we go on clearing patrols before climbing up to a guard tower using a rope. We descend from here, going on to clear a security room, and then go to use a CCTV to guide Ghost through the place so that he could plant explosive charges on trucks while Rodolfo searches for Alejandro using a computer. Rodolfo eventually finds Alejandro in solitary, which is our next destination, as we go on to breach the cells, freeing Alejandro and reuniting with the dude. We go on from here, freeing Alejandro's soldiers, and then go to exit, hitting this armory and restocking as we head to exfil. Not long after this, a helicopter comes out of nowhere, and then we see it get blasted by a rocket shot by Price. We go on to use a rope to ascend the wall, regrouping with Price after.
Sergeant Metallics.
Good to see you, Captain.
Ghost,
Garrick, Price.
How'd you know?
Laswell.
Soon as Shepard went dark, she called us. Laswell's still solid as a rock.
Colonel Vargas. Meet Captain Price and Sergeant Garrick.
Thanks for the assist. My men need cover fire. Gaz, Soap, Ghost, Overwatch, now.
So after this, we go on to defense, dropping dudes to cover Alejandro's men. Once this is done, we make our escape by jumping down the wall with a cutscene of our group escaping via vehicle, with Ghost and Soap saying that Shepard betrayed them by sending Graves and Shadow Company to kill them and round up Alejandro's men, with Price responding by saying that he knew why. The scene then goes to 2 months ago, where we learn that Laswell had uncovered redacted intel regarding a black bag operation that was conducted by Shepard and carried out by Shadow Company. We learn here that they were transacting American-made ballistic missiles to allies who were fighting Russians in the Middle East, with the mission not going as planned. This next mission, titled Hindsight, we're playing as this dude in Shadow Company named Apollo who's helping delivering the milk, which we learn is some missiles, with Laswell narrating here that the shipment was spotted before it reached its destination. Shortly after, we see that there's something blocking the route as Apollo leans out the window when some enemies attack. We find out that our attackers are Russian as we pretty much just shoot away when our vehicle gets blasted. We survive, however, and then go to crawl towards a gun. Unfortunately, Apollo gets shot and killed here while trying to yell out to Graves that the enemy has the radio, as we overhear some narration from Laswell, who says that the Russians executed the entire squad and got a hold of Shadow's codes, learning that Shepard was behind it and that the missiles were given to Hassan. We learn that Shepard and Graves tried covering this up, and then we also find out that 3 missiles were stolen and that we have 2 of them, but one of them is still out there. The following cutscene, we see Price confronting Shepard. Price tells Shepard to call off Graves, but he refuses to do so, with Price saying that he's going after Graves and that when he's done, he's going after Shepard. The scene then goes on to Price explain that they're going to take back Alejandro's HQ and kill Graves.
We are taking back your HQ. You're getting up prisoner. We are killing Commander Graves.
when?
Now. This is a fight against our own. We are not 1-4-1 and Los Vaqueros on this. We're a team. Go Ghost team. Good to see you again, Salman. If you're in, take a mask. If you're not, don't.
So this moment is foul with Alejandro giving a rundown on the plan to retake the base as we begin the mission Ghost Team, where we're essentially switching between Gaz and Soap for this level. In the introduction section, we're playing as Gaz, proceeding through the tunnels underneath Alejandro's base while disabling explosives and taking out guards. At the end of this section, we go up a ladder and then split off from Price and Alejandro's other man, who go to board a chopper as Alejandro and Gaz head to Hangar 1, when the game switches us to playing as Soap, who is with Rodolfo and Ghost. During this section, we use a spotter scope to mark a gate for Price to blow up, and then we fight into the base, eventually getting to the command center where Graves is holed up when we go to breach.
It's locked. Rudy, what do you got? Breacher charge. Nice.
Clear to engage all threats inside. If you see Graves, drop him.
Hey, Rudy. Sorry about your base.
So we switch back to Gaz and Alejandro, who sweep Hangar 1, and then get to Hangar 3, where Valeria is being held. Once this place is clear, we switch back to Soap and crew, who breach into the command center, seeing Graves rush off. We head through the place, eventually getting back outside, where we see Price's helicopter get shot down, with Ghost going to see if they're alright, as Rodolfo and Soap head into the training facility, where they find Graves, who's inside of a tank. For this part, we end up having to run around looking for explosives to blow it up.
Did it, Soap? You and me, hermano, brought a gun to a tank fight.
Yeah, we did.
Soap the Ghost. I'm with Rudy. Graves is KIA. How's Price?
Angry. Lost a good cigar in the crash.
So with Graves taken care of, we find out that Price and the pilot survived the crash. This fell with us seeing our boys go in to have a chat with Valeria, who tells them that the last missile and Hassan are in Chicago, with Price and the others heading there. We learn in the following scene that Hassan was taken to a building in downtown Chicago that's owned by a shell company of the Los Alamos cartel, which is our destination. And so it is that we begin the final mission countdown, where we're playing as Soap again as we fly into the rooftop of the building that Al-Qatala had taken over with Price, going on to rappel down the building to save some hostages floor by floor. Once we finish this, we reunite with Price again, finding out from Laswell that the missile is active in its first stage as we head to reach a control room to search for Hassan, seeing that it's empty. We learn here about possible visual on Hassan on another floor as we once again rappel down to a restaurant, clearing enemies. After this, we head down a stairwell when we see a missile being launched.
All stations, missile is hot. I say again, the missile is launching.
But anyways, we're reunited with Gaz as we clear the area, getting positive ID on Hassan after Price puts a snake cam under a door. However...
You broken? I'm good. Go, you got this.
Soap, let's move.
So with Price down, we end up going with Gaz to an elevator shaft, also learning from Laswell that the missile's headed for Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, Soap is split off from him as the elevator crashes down with Soap landing in an elevator with Hassan. Soap grabs the missile controls and then runs off as we end up running around trying to avoid getting dropped, with Laswell trying to help us detonate it before it could reach its target. Once this is taken care of, there's only one thing left to do: take out Hassan. But first, we gotta take out his men. After we do this, Soap is surprised by Hassan and shot. Hassan drags Soap to a window with the intentions of tossing him out when we switch to playing as Ghost.
Perfect show, LT.
You called it, Sergeant. All stations.
Hassan's down.
So Ghost snipes Hassan, saving Soap. This is followed by a scene with Price and Laswell having a conversation in a bar where we discover that Shepard is off the grid, and that ultra-nationalists were the ones who ambushed the convoy, with Laswell passing Price a picture, who he says is Makarov, as the game ends. And that, my friends, is Modern Warfare 2 2022. So summarizing my thoughts on the campaign of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 2022, I'm a bit mixed here. Honestly, this was the first time I ever actually made it through the entirety of the campaign, so there was a lot of random things I was surprised by, and some that I just was like disappointed with, you know? I think it has moments where the game's really good, and a lot of the guns feel nice and fluid, and some of the levels are visually stunning, but I don't know. I just think that if you compare the story alone to the OG Modern Warfare 2, it's relatively underwhelming in some ways. Sure, there's a bit nostalgia on my end since the original Modern Warfare 2 is one of my favorite games, but I feel like there's more to it than just that. That section with the missile being prepared to launch during dark waters and the part where it's launched from Chicago just at some random location, well, it feels lame if you compare it to something like what we get in Modern Warfare 2, where we see the nuke from outer space with Price using it in the OG to stop the Russian invasion. Here, it's terrorism, but I don't know. I think Graves' betrayal was a bit baffling too. I'm guessing the idea was because Shadow Company was gonna do whatever it took to find Hassan, even if it meant doing things that would have been deemed as unethical or war crimes, like what we see Shadow Company doing in the level alone. It's hard to imagine any of Task Force 141 would have been down for this had they known about it. Was there other ways to find Hassan? Probably. But we don't get to see those outcomes, and really, all this did was gave us an extra villain. It's whatever. I mean, I did like the Graves character in Shadow Company. We had the latter in the original game, but they were really only at the end of the campaign with no leader or anything. They were just dudes on our way to Shepard. There's a few missions that I wanted to mention as highlights in the game as well. I mentioned Dark Water, which is easily my favorite mission in the game, and one that I would argue is one of the best in the series. In the original Modern Warfare 2, we have an oil rig level, but it's kind of not great since all you're really doing is rescuing hostages in it. But in the reboot, we're essentially trying to stop a missile launch. The opening of the level is great, and the atmosphere is fantastic as we head through the rig dropping enemies. But what really highlights the mission is the second half where we're on the boat. This part where you see the crates moving back and forth in real time with the stormy weather is honestly awesome. I loved Crew Expendable in Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare because of its atmosphere in the same vein, but this one really ups the ante. And I'll just say that the oil rig being blown up at the end is really like the cherry on top. I'll also give credit to the mission Recon by Fire. In a way, this is somewhat similar to All Gillied Up in some regards. You even have this section where you have to avoid the path of enemies walking at you in the same way as you did in Gillied Up. It's a good level, and it's always fun sniping enemies, so that's a bonus. Lastly, I don't really know what other people's perception is on the mission alone, but I wanted to mention this one because of how different it is. I personally didn't necessarily care for it, just because of how out of place it felt, but I can totally see someone else liking it just because of how different it is. The whole sneaking around collecting items to craft stuff to help you survive strangely reminded me of The Last of Us. I did really like the atmosphere of the level, but the design of it was like a curveball. But like I said, it wasn't my least favorite level or one that I found to be completely awful. It was just different, so I wanted to mention it here. Other than that, the gameplay is as you'd expect with Call of Duty, though I think the movement here is a bit better than Vanguard and even Modern Warfare 2019. Guns in the game are solid, which shouldn't be much of a surprise since they felt good to use in Modern Warfare 2019 as well. There weren't any that I really didn't like, honestly. I found most, if not all, the ones that I picked up to feel extremely smooth. The sniper rifles were pretty great too. I think in general they all felt great to use during the campaign. I might have a bias towards the MCPR 300 because of that being used in Recon by Fire. It was fun to use here and really felt pretty solid taking out targets from deep. I mentioned the looks of the game with stuff like Dark Water and Recon by Fire, but didn't really say much about it. Overall, this game is incredible to look at. The cutscenes are top notch and a lot of them just have that look where it feels like you're watching a movie. The voice acting is also pretty good too. I'm gonna ignore my OG Modern Warfare 2 bias here and say that I don't really think any of the performances were bad in Modern Warfare 2 2022 or anything. Like I said, I did like Graves' character a lot as well, but honestly, in general, general. I thought all the performances were good and made the plot feel believable enough. I also thought the soundtrack was an improvement from Modern Warfare 2019, though it still had the same overall vibe to it. I really liked the Recon by Fire track. I don't know why, but it kind of felt like it got you into it a bit. So with everything mostly good and meh out there, let's get my complaints out of the way. First of all, I want to ask, what genius at Activision thought making it so that you needed to go through this Call of Duty launcher to access a single player game was a good idea? Seriously, on all of the occasions that I found myself disconnecting at random while playing the campaign, it always booted me out completely. To make matters worse, it takes forever to load the game back up and get into the campaign again. Just watch how long this process takes with the game being installed on a solid state drive. Absolute unnecessary trash. I don't know how this is on console, but on PC we have to deal with this nonsense anytime we want to play any of the newer Call of Duties. It's garbage, and I shouldn't have to deal with it when I want to access something that should be accessible without it being online. You know, I didn't even think to mention this in my Black Ops 6 video because I didn't keep getting disconnected while playing, so I kind of glossed over it. But here, it became so much of an issue that I started to get annoyed by it. Okay, so now that I've gotten all that out of the way, and since I've pretty much already aired out that I don't think that the game was narratively better than the OG Modern Warfare 2, I'll at least mention that I still found the campaign to be a fine time for the most part. However, there was one particular mission in the game that might take the cake for being one of my least favorite things in existence. It's so bad that I would rather go back and deal with the terrible flying controls in Call of Duty Vanguard. Of course, I'm talking about violence and timing, a level that I don't ever wish to expose the remnants of my sanity to ever again in my life. During this mission, you're essentially driving around, jumping from vehicle to vehicle in this looping track where we're going around and around. It's not fun, and after your second pass, when you start to actually notice the same things that you saw previously, it starts to feel tedious. But what makes this mission absolute trash is this section where dudes start chucking out mines and blowing up random vehicles. Seriously, what is this? Not only was this mission absolute trash, but it was also one of the longest that I clocked in, mainly because of those stupid mines. Normally I could commend these developers for attempting to switch it up and try something different, but this one is just not good. Literal junk. I also give dishonorable mention to this section where you gotta blow up a tank. I'm almost positive I died here on this one section alone more than every other mission combined. It was a curveball and really just felt like an unexpected annoyance more than anything else. Running around trying to scavenge for C4 only to get blasted in the back and thrown to a checkpoint was not a good time, I'll say that much. So anyways, that's all I had to say about Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 2022. I like it, but I don't think that it's as good as the original Modern Warfare 2. That being said, if you ignore that aspect, it's a solid entry. There's lots of cinematic levels with some fun gameplay and some good improvements from Modern Warfare 2019. Really, I think the game is impressive from a visual standpoint too. The cutscenes and levels like Dark Water really highlight the impressiveness of the game's engine. Whether or not that you like the game, I think that it's still possible to appreciate the stunning graphics and attention to detail throughout the campaign. And yeah, even though the game contains some levels that I'm pretty mixed with, one that I'll just straight up say sucked, I think that there was enough that I liked here to warrant it feeling like a good enough time for me to recommend. Would I ever play it again? Probably not. But I had a mostly positive experience with the campaign, and at the end of the day, I guess that's all that really matters. Thank you all for watching. So what did you think about Modern Warfare 2 2022? Did you like it, or was it meh? Feel free to leave a comment and I'll be sure to read it. Also, if you like the video, please consider liking and subscribing too. As always, it helps me out. We'll be back with more soon enough, so stay tuned. Until next time, peace out.